I'm so excited to have you here. Kailen Rosenburg is the architect of love for the stars, which is a really fabulous name. I love that. A little bit about Kailen is she is the celebrity love architect. She is a certified DBT trained master life and relationship coach, a Simon and Schuster author, amazing, and Oprah's Love Ambassador on the award-winning Love Town USA, which is awesome. I'd love to hear about that experience. But before we dive in, I just want, when I think of, hearing all of your background and all of these experiences that you've had, I think the most interesting thing for me is, just in general, what is it like working with high profile clients?
Not easy. And I say that with love, or genuinely with love. There's a breakdown when it comes to the reality of love, relationships, intimacy, and really vulnerability that you need to have in your most authentic self, just in life in general for all of us. But when you are someone who's really in the public eye, you are known for being a certain name and a certain brand and a certain thing, it is so incredibly easy to get lost in that and to become confused by it. And then when trying to fall in love with someone or keep a loving relationship, it's more sensitive than most would probably think, because most people sort of see all of these people, all of the favorite, their favorite stars, whether they're on television or they're in the movies or whatever, or even up on a stage and they're singing and they're thinking, oh my gosh, their world's so amazing. Life must be so incredible for them. And it is in many, many ways. But when it comes down again to the vulnerability and the opportunity to connect in love, it's really, really hard. And so it's an honor for me to be brought into their lives and to help them and to work with them. But it's tough work. It's really tough work. And I have to be the tough bad guy in my clients' lives that are used to hearing, yes to everything. And I say a lot of no's. But it
Interesting.
definitely is an honor. It's interesting.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
when you say no's, what do you mean by that specifically? And how does that approach to matchmaking, apply to folks in the public eye?
I think that it's letting them know that I am not going to be sort of a handler,
Mm.
and that I am here to love on them and to see into them for the truth of who they really are, separate from their celebrity and or their name or their fame or their financial power, just to see them in their heart and in their soul. And even though that's enticing to them in many ways, it's also a bit frightening because they are used to, it's not their fault, but part of their comfort zone is being in control. And so it feels then quite vulnerable, I think, for them with me. And so it's really just, I'm not always the most fun to work with in the beginning, because I'm really sort of like a physician when you have a sickness or an illness that you might be afraid of hearing about, or perhaps hearing what you need to do to heal that ailment. I'm diving right into where the issue is, and then pouring not only truth, but then love into it and onto it. And so it's a heavy process. It's, again, there's a lot of glamour involved. There's a lot of fun and sparkly stuff around it on the outside, but behind the scenes, it's a very different reality. It is.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, so you talked a little bit about like the celebrities being in the need to have control and having to kind of remind them of vulnerability, and that's part of love. How would you say that being in the public eye affects someone's way to maintain sort of a healthy relationship? What are some of the things that they have to consider when they're trying to build a loving relationship and maintain that, but also dealing with the public.
Yeah. That who they are in front of others, again, in their celebrity, whatever it is and whatever level, is not who they are or should be when it comes to love and their relationships and how they behave in their relationships. And so where, we might see two actors that we absolutely adore. They will oftentimes even get lost in that themselves and forget who they really are, who they were before their fame and their success, and then try to fall in love with and connect with one another. And they have a really, really hard time. Or they fall in love with the person they know of or see as someone who is the celebrity. And then when they realize there is a really different, raw and real person behind that, oftentimes they're thrown off by that. So it just as with all of the work I do and the whole architecture piece, it's really about diving to the truth, the foundation and the core of who each human is, regardless of who you are and what you have, so that you can have that beautiful, amazing opportunity to experience all of the goods that come with real love and a real connection and a real relationship. So that's it. It's a whole different deal. It really, really is. And so I know it's going to be fun to talk to you about reality TV and how love can show up for people in that. Uh,
Yeah.
Talking about celebrity, it's again, it's an honor on a whole new level, but it's hard for them, and but which is why there's a lot of divorce and a lot of breakdown in in Hollywood, and so I spend a lot of my time helping heal those marriages as well. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, to tie it into reality TV with that follow-up, when we talk about Love Island, I mentioned that, people come in from all walks of life into the villa and that's how they start dating and they sort of are coupled up and then, they don't have a chance to see how the public is watching them and viewing them. And then they get outside the villa and they have this whole sort of, I guess, public reckoning of like how they're perceived and how their
Ugh.
relationship is perceived, which is a lot. And I'm
Yeah,
curious if you would have any advice for someone, going through that. What would you say to someone coming out and kind of reckoning with all of that?
I think that's excellent, and I love that because you have so we have non-famous people, right? They might become famous to a degree after being on the show, but you have normal everyday humans walking into this set that has a lot of producers and production and cameras and directors and kind of creating this scene and this vibe for people to meet one another, fall in love, and do their normal thing, right? So you have normal people basically coming together, as celebrities would say, civilians, having the different levels of chemistry, whether it's sexual chemistry or spiritual chemistry or psychological, whatever it is, intellectual, doing their thing that they really just do and are accustomed to doing in real life off screen, and then going, not knowing why they're really screwing things up on or off screen. They just know that love has not worked for them, which is why they're on the show in the first place, or one of the main reasons.
Mm,
And then to go back out into real life and to see how they are perceived and experienced is not comfortable. I'm sure I can imagine is actually awful in many ways, but there's such a beautiful gift in that. So it's almost like the public, the viewer, is who I am in my celebrity clients' lives, because I'm saying your shit does stink. Like it's and that's okay though. You're still beautiful and amazing, but your crap is not as perfect as you think, and that's so good. Let's just get really raw and real. And so I think it's a beautiful opportunity. Again, I'm sure they don't feel this way themselves, but it's a beautiful opportunity to go, oh my Lord, I didn't know I show up that way. I didn't know I behaved that way. I didn't know that I was that messed up and dysfunctional. I didn't know. But again, that's all okay. And I think that's where we get stuck in life, is that we carry so much shame and so much self-criticism that we're so afraid of making mistakes rather than realizing that actually the mistakes are the good, that's the good stuff. That's where the teaching is. It's where the opportunity for healing and growth is. And it's where the opportunity for the juiciest, best relationships and love are. So yeah, I'm excited to watch the darn show.
yeah. Well, no, it's so interesting that you said this is an amazing opportunity because as a viewer, I love watching their relationships sort of bloom and grow together
Yeah.
and criticizing it and also critiquing it from, the comfort of my couch and my living room and I think it's so interesting that you said that's an opportunity for them to be like, oh, what are my mistakes in relationships? What are the things that I need to work on? And kind of like maybe not totally self-destruct, but use that as a learning opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's a very positive way to experience it. And maybe some good advice for the Love Islanders when they come out.
I think it's true. And there are people obviously that are going to be incredibly overwhelmingly critical or harsh with it. But then again, it's always, and this is what I try to teach my clients, when we're really in a true space of genuine self-love, we can hear anything. We can hear any criticism and any shame actually from someone else that's being projected or put onto us. And we can sit with it and go, okay, cool, that's interesting information. I wonder if there's any truth in that whatsoever, regardless of the delivery. And so there is that beautiful nugget and moment. And then also though, having compassion and realizing, so this is to the people that are on the show that read stuff that might be really, really hard to read about themselves. But to say, okay, wow, I guess something is in me is showing up like that in my relationship. Where's the truth? But at the same time, wow, this person was really harsh and nasty or mean. My heart goes out to them because obviously this is a person that's getting triggered by something in my own action and behavior that is obviously then something in their life. So it's an opportunity too for us to learn how to see into each other and love one another instead of literally being so freaking critical all the time,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I really like that. Not, taking it fully to heart, but like understanding that if you're given feedback, might as well reflect on it and see what you can do from that. I like
Yeah.
that. Bringing it back to reality TV, I know that they're hugely popular, and I know you shared some that you're into. I'm curious from your perspective why we're so fascinated in watching, dating shows as viewers and why it's so compelling
Yeah.
from what you would guess.
From an ego, soul, spirit, human level, we identify. And we're starving, we're less connected because of technology, I believe, and unhealed trauma, but than we've ever been. And so there's something really comforting about sitting down, numbing out, being entertained, but all while at the same time identifying, right? So we're really more engaged than we have any idea. Our traumas, our wounds, our excitement, our hope, our dreams are all identifying with the person that we're watching or the people. And so we can watch the so-called train wreck and we can judge it or we can learn from it and go, my Lord, that's embarrassing. I totally do that. That's me.
Yeah.
So I think that there's so much of that going on. And it's almost like therapy and entertainment while being dumbed down, numbed out, and yet awake at the same time. And yet I think one of the biggest issues I have in the work that I do, 90 Day does it, I'm trying to think of others, but they have their pillow talk. And oh my Lord, talk about me losing it. So I'll sit there and my kids just laugh, but I will sit and watch the pillow talk and I'll watch all of the attention put on the other cast members kind of critiquing one another. And I'm like, oh my Lord, this is what we do. We're like the bad, dysfunctional, codependent friend that just tells you mostly everything you want to hear in general, and you just stay stuck instead of just calling things out on a higher level, again, for love, healing, and change, not with judgment, but just
Mm.
reality. I mean, that's a true reality. But yeah, we identify. That's the bottom line. We identify, regardless of calling it entertainment or not. We all see a little part of ourselves, even in the most cringe-worthy people sometimes. I'm not joking.
Yeah, and
You know?
I totally see that because every season there's like your favorite that you like you notice like they do a particular thing that you find intriguing or interesting, but maybe that's something you like you said you identify that's why you like them. So I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. I'm curious, we've all watched reality TV. You said something about the pillow talk, and when you're watching and viewers are watching, with your eye, can you tell the difference between sort of maybe the genuine connections versus, sometimes there's like the performative ones, people, you know, date or try to get with someone, to be on the show or to get further on the show. And I'm curious if you have any, tips for finding genuine connection or sussing it out when you're watching.
I'm trying to think if I understood your question exactly. And so if I'm not answering and just redirect me or correct.
Yes.
Um, can I tell if I think they're being authentic? Is that one of your questions? Or if they're being more deceptive or really there for fame? Is that one of
Yeah, maybe the question is more, what are some red flags of people that people do sort of in early in the dating kind of space that show that that they're not looking for a genuine connection potentially.
on the shows?
On the shows in real life, I
Oh,
think probably could apply both, maybe.
yeah, yeah, it's a different. So on the show, I think, are there always, I mean, I have to say, I think that some are planted. I just
Mm,
think they do. I just think they're creatively planted.
yeah.
But have a little more duration than they probably typically would. It's just part of the entertainment element of it. But I think in general, I think that most everyone who is seeking to find love who are on these singles reality shows, I think they're honestly genuinely looking. They're just period the end. They're genuinely looking. I don't think they'd be even if they thought, oh my gosh, okay, I got selected for the show and I get to be on the show and this is gonna be huge for my career and I can start a podcast. Deep inside, how amazing would it be if they actually met their person and fell in love, right?
Mm.
I think, again, getting back to the human piece of who and where we are all at when it comes to love or relationship, wanting to find our person, feel safe, and be together. Unless we've been so traumatized that we're afraid to believe in love, we really all want it. For the ones that sort of stand out like a sore thumb with regard to just being in it for themselves, it's easy to judge that person and to go, ugh, or get them off, or, the show. But at the same time, my heart actually has deep compassion for them because that's a really broken place to be. That's whether you want to call it a narcissist or, a sociopath or whatever you want to call it, a really emotionally and spiritually removed being. It's someone who's really in pain, struggling, and lonely behind the scenes and doesn't have an ability to truly connect with people off
Mm.
camera. They
Mm.
just can't on much other than a superficial level. So I really don't judge that. My heart breaks for them. And I just kind of go, okay, let's see how long this lasts. And I hope that they get something that happens that wakes them up at some point. But I think going into relationships in general, most of us, the biggest mistake that we so unknowingly make all the time, even though we're always hearing, oh my gosh, you can't love anyone else until you love yourself, or you have to do your self work. I mean, and especially all over, Instagram and TikTok, everybody's talking about all the different things, all the experts, everyone, but very few people actually really know what that actually is and what it means and how to really truly love yourself. And then sadly, because we haven't figured it out, we're constantly trying to find that love in someone else. And we're putting this total soul pressure on them without knowing it. And then they're letting us down, or so we believe, and yet we're letting them down. And then we start the spiral, and then we think we're with the wrong person. And most of us end up with the wrong person, and we're being the wrong person. And yet love does not have to be that hard. And yet there isn't a lot out there that's really supporting and producing a higher love that really sits there waiting for all of us.
Mm.
Love is really meant to be so incredibly easy, simple, and beautiful and peaceful. And that's my passion, helping people get there. But yeah, I know it's deep, but
No, no. I mean, now I want to kind of go into that if that's okay. You talked about, or you've shared that you have sort of this love design process, for personal growth, and would love to hear just sort of, a little bit more about that and how you get to that place of, the person who started off who maybe is on the show for the wrong reasons and showing up that you feel sorry for, to the person who's open and maybe more accepting to finding that.
yeah. It's funny. I'm just actually looking at my notes because I had a coaching session earlier and, with my clients in the love design piece. And here's just a quick, you can't see her name, so it's fine. And you can't see a thing. So this is something all my clients go through, right? So it's a self-love blueprint. And, it starts out with things as simple as hair and teeth, and then it goes immediately into natural wisdom, self-truth, right? Loving oneself, ego health. And this woman that I am working with, stunning. I mean, every female would say, oh, every male and female would say, oh my Lord. So she's stunning. I mean, she's literally the physical epitome of almost perfection from head to toe. She's lovely. She's sweet. She's educated. She's all the things on paper, right? And she's a honey. But love has been really hard for her, and she does not know why. And when I was going through the blueprint with her, she was brought to tears because I had to say again some things and share some things with her that are not comfortable, that don't sound flattering. She's used to everyone telling her how beautiful and amazing she is, but she's not used to having people really see into her. And it went all the way back to when she was little with her mom. And still, even as an adult woman today, mom still doesn't see her, doesn't see her
Mm.
other than something she, with lots of expectations that have nothing to do with her. And so because of that, the minute she's in a relationship with someone and with a man and wanting to become intimate emotionally and spiritually, she blocks it, but she thinks the men are blocking it. So until we work through that, no one's ready for love. We all think we are because we're single, right? And because we want someone. but yet we end up repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. And we don't understand why. And we think it's going to change because we have a different person, and it's not. The person that has to change is ourself. So the love design part and the love architecture part is just really introducing people to the truth of who they are, teaching them to genuinely love themselves, fall in love with themselves, and then introduce them to someone who's really precious and beautiful and amazing that can meet them where they're at. And then that's when the most amazing love and relationship and best friendships happen, and all the best sex and like all the and so that's what we need to start changing and really focusing on, rather than all of the issues. Everybody
Mm.
has issues. Everyone can be narcissistic. Everyone can be a jerk. Everyone has trauma to different degrees, but it's time to start really, really looking at it all differently, starting with ourselves so that we can get out there and have fun.
Mm. Okay, so if we were to maybe apply that to, sharing with a friend or who's maybe going through some hard dating experiences, how would you bring maybe some self-awareness into that relationship or help them out in that way?
It's again not the fun part. And so I'll say, what are the patterns that you're noticing? If I'm talking to a heterosexual woman who's is there a pattern in the kind of men that you attract or you've been attracted to? And 9 out of 10 women will say, absolutely, I'm attracted to da 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 da, and this is what I attract. And oh, they're all jerks and they're all this, they can't commit, they can't and then it's going to this, which we've heard a million times, but who's the common denominator? What's the common? It's you, right? So that's okay. So how do you show up when these things happen that you don't like in each of these relationships? And it's getting really raw and real, not oh, I showed like this, I did. No, no, no. How do you, like, when it's freaking ugly, how do you, like, it's okay. How do you show up?
Mm.
Because so it's again, moving the shame out of the way, because the way that you show up in the ugliest part of you is actually an incredible starving cry for help to heal something that goes way, way back that has nothing to do with this relationship other than the relationship triggered it. And that's a beautiful opportunity, once again, to heal.
Mm.
And so then and then it's saying, okay, what about you continues to stay in these relationships? So the minute you see the red flags and the minute you decide to say, you know what, yeah, but what is that? Rather than, why are you doing that? I can't believe you're doing that.
Mm.
Okay, you're doing that. That's okay. What is it? What is that part of you that's feeling so triggered, that's staying in this position, in this space, in this relationship that's unhealthy and unkind and unloving to you? What about that is staying there without judgment? What is it? And then when you can kind of calm and breathe within yourself and you can say, okay, oh my gosh, this is actually what it is. This reminds me of this, or this reminds me of my dad, or something about them reminds it. We always know the truth. All the answers are inside of us. That's when we can finally get to it and start to heal it and then release it. So that's the whole thing it's not like you heal and you stay stuck. You heal and it just falls off of you, and all of a sudden you feel lighter, and then you look different, and then you attract different people, and then you show up differently. And then the next time you're triggered, an old behavior that you once would have had is completely different. You're like, whoa, who am I? And it's really lovely. So, but it's not just in our romantic relationships, but it's also in all relationships, the way we connect and communicate with one another, even strangers.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's so funny that you say this. So another quirk of Love Island is that usually when someone comes into the villa, like one of the first questions they'll ask is, "What's your type?" What's your type on paper? And they can describe their type, like, "Oh, the guys I've dated, they look like this way, or they're like a little bit of a lad or a Chad or whatever, like their type is."
Yeah.
So it's funny that you said that, those patterns show up over and over, but maybe it's not necessarily their type, but it's just something in them that they're looking for and, have some self-reflection on what that would mean for
Well,
them.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
It's attached to everything.
wow. Well, now I'm gonna watch it and through that lens and be like, okay, what does that say about them?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be curious too, from your perspective, you talked a little bit about how, the internet and social media are sort of impacting our dating lives. Would love to hear more about your perspective on that and also just, like what dating culture looks like or what are some challenges that we're experiencing in this like sort of day and age.
It breaks my heart, to be honest. So I go way back. I'm really old. No, I'm one of the first in matchmaking. I'm one of the first matchmakers or elite matchmakers in the country. And so I was obviously doing my thing way before anything online and Match.com or eHarmony, who were, the first. But this whole swiping thing has so desensitized us. So gone are the days of us just organically, intuitively, because, even though, yes, we as women are very intuitive, men are intuitive too, right? And then the more connected you are with yourself and healthier in your emotional state that you are, the higher and the healthier and the stronger the ability to be able to see in an environment where we're together in person, to be able to see, feel, and connect with the person that could be our person. And that's not really happening anymore. And if it is, it's happening, I think, in the most dysfunctional way in general
Mm.
than it ever has. And so now most everyone is online swiping, 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 like they're looking for a new puppy, and sadly, like a puppy mill, or through a breeder. And I was just with my son the other day, who's single, and he's, Mom, help me, find your daughter-in-law. And I'm watching this, and he's, nope, nope, nope. And I'm like, no, how do you know? Like, how do you
Spend
know?
2 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, nope, nope. And I'm like, sweetheart, stop. Wait a minute. What are you looking at? Why are you saying no? Slow down. If this is how we're doing it, let's pay attention. And when he slowed and he realized he was in a pattern. He's, my buddies and I all get together and we go, dut, 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 dut. And so I think that along is really harming society, along with, again, all the experts. And in many ways, I'm grateful that there are a lot of really talented, good healers and helpers and psychologists and coaches and experts that are out there doing their thing on social to give their advice. But I also think that there's such a pattern that then people get lost in and addicted to that. So that whole long, crazy craze of, no, is he a narcissist? Is she a narcissist? Here are the 5 signs of narcissism: narcissistic abuse, gaslighting, da 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 da. Okay, that's good to have for a second of awareness. But now let's move on to, how do we not just recognize it in others, but in ourselves?
Mm.
Where does it come from with compassion? And then how do we heal it? And how do we protect ourselves in a non-shaming, non-judgmental way of others? Now all of a sudden it's like everybody has an Uzi out and it's just like da 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 da. I mean, and I think, yeah, that's a whole other thing. We're just, as I said in the earlier on, we're becoming more desensitized because of technology and more removed from one another. And even this whole campaign, the whole political thing we just went through, regardless of what side of the aisle someone was on, the hatred and the anger and the judgment on both sides is heartbreaking. And we have, I'm sure you could be my daughter. I mean, we have our younger generation seeking to fall in love and to have families and to have a life that they feel excited about. And I think they're being handed a really sad state right now. And my heart is just really to change that. And so that's why it's also really sweet and fun to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Bringing it back to Love Island world and then coming out, like I said, the couples, obviously don't have as much fame and then come out and they have fame,
Mm.
and you mentioned sometimes you talk with couples who maybe are more long term and, I would love to hear, from your perspective, what are some of the struggles that those types of couples face and how you would kind of work with them and kind of, I don't know, coach them on maintaining a long-term relationship in the public eye.
Yeah. Again, I mean, that's a couple of different answers for that one. One thing is that, once again, what up? So number one, who we are attracted to is far deeper than the ego. Again, even though it's visual. Is he hot? Is he sexy? Is she gorgeous? Is she whatever it is? Am I into them physically? Okay. Do we get along? Do they turn me on spiritually, emotionally, whatever? Do they have the lifestyle? Do we have things in common? Where are our values at? All right. That's all kind of in place. But now we had our first disconnect. We had our first fight. It is at that moment that you are revealing to one another, again, our traumas, our unhealed stuff, our pain points. And instead of fighting about it, this is the most amazing, beautiful opportunity rather than getting turned off, pissed off, and judging, which is where 99% of people go. Instead, going, oh, thank you for showing me who you are. Oh my gosh, so this is really who you are. So that really scared you, or that really turned you off, or that, okay, wow, I'm falling in love with you. So I really want to know more about that. I'm not going to judge you for being ugly and acting in a really creepy, crazy way yet. I want to be curious about it, and I'd love for you to be curious about my ugly that comes out, right? And because that is what starts to create the true foundation, the true glue, and the power of the coolest, best, healthiest relationships. So there's that. And there's so much more I could go into that. But anyway, and then as far as going back out into the world, again, any pressure, it's right, the pressure of, an uncut diamond, or, melting steel, or it's something with pottery, if pottery breaks, and then putting it back together and molding it, and it becomes even better, more exquisite art because of the cracks. And because it's the same thing with our relationships. You're going back into the world. The world is your pressure chamber. It is showing you the weakness and the space for healing within yourselves, within the relationship, which is the opportunity actually for growth and amazing love. And so how do you take that, and how do you use that? And how do you have fun with that? And how do you seek to learn more about one another with that? Because you're just going back to life. And that's cool, because that's where you want to be with your person. You want to be in life. You
Yeah.
can't have the whole love experience on an island or on a set with a bunch of, again, cameras and producers and
Yeah.
buds in your ears and
Yeah.
alcohol. I've done a reality show. Yeah. Did that
That's
answer your question?
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now that you mentioned it, would you share a little bit about your reality TV experience and how that was for you?
Yeah, it was heavy. It was, I mean, I had the honor back then of working with Oprah, and it was at a time when her whole heart and her focus was on a social experiment. That's really what Lovetown was. It was a social experiment to see what is the true energetic power and healing power of love. And so we literally looked for a town that had the most pain and disruption, between mothers and daughters who hadn't spoken in many years, to churches and congregations that were fighting and hating one another, to singles that just couldn't find their person. And at first we were sort of thinking, okay, this is really fascinating, interesting. If we're just being loved constantly, how will that change things? And I will tell you that it actually worked. It was one of the most profound, and I know I'm being really quite vague right now, but it was one of the most profound experiences I had ever had, to the point of where, there were over 100 and some people in the crew. It was a massive crew, from cameramen to everyone involved. And here we were in this tiny little town. And then at the end, though, there was such love and such healing. No one wanted to leave. Like, we
Mm.
just wanted to, it was like a true utopia. And I remember being so excited and wanting to come home to Minnesota and to just get that whole thing, like love flowing here. And it lasted like a couple of weeks.
Mm.
And so when I say it was really amazing to be able to work on a reality show that was focused on love, and with Oprah at the time, and where her heart was at, was that, I did have the gift of not having to have the bug in the ear, or the earbud. And I mean, I had it, but they weren't telling me what to say or what to do,
Yeah.
right? And the focus was pure. But I do know from working with many clients and friends that have a very different experience with reality TV behind the scenes, it's not that way. And I think that can be really confusing for people as well. But no, it was absolutely life-changing. And it did show me, especially in my work and with my passion and with what I do, that love is so far beyond what we call it or think of it. And
Mm.
it has so much power to heal. But again, it starts with us.
Interesting. Yeah. I would, just a quick follow-up there, what would you sort of attribute to that being sort of so profound? Was it just like the focus on, finding love and finding healing that, you had in that experience? And, was it the magic of the whole crew coming together to working towards that? Or, what specifically do you think kind of like contributed to that, being so wonderful?
It was that it started out as a very creatively, and this may sound then like I'm going back on what I said earlier, but it, it started out with a lot of creative control and direction to
Mm.
actually try to test this the best that we could. And so it started with a town hall with all of the pissed off people in the town and all of their gripes. And instead of, which actually I think this was incredibly functional, instead of just listening to a bunch of people bitch and complain back and forth at each other about what they couldn't stand and they hated with one another, and then just supporting, like, yeah, yeah, and letting it go and letting them continue. Instead, it was my job and also that of my co-host of the show, Paul Brunson. It was our job to hear everyone's gripes and their pain and their frustration with one another, but then to stop it there, to cut it, and to bring it back to love. And if they could have it in a perfect world the way they wanted it, what would that look like? And then how might we be able to support making that happen? And so it was that we came in with a disruptive energy to stop the crap that was keeping everyone stuck and in pain.
Mm. No,
And it was,
I mean, it relates to what you were saying
you
before,
know,
though, about it. Yes, it was controlled, but it very focusing on the unique elements of each person and what they needed to get through or heal in that circumstance.
yeah. And you know what everyone needed was to feel heard. And we hear
Mm,
that all the time, and we're like, oh, yeah, I just need to feel heard. You really do need to feel heard. There's something that needs to feel heard, that needs to feel seen, that needs to be seen, that needs to feel loved and calmed and okay, so that we can, we can soften enough and balance enough to be able to hear and do what we need to do to then move to the next space so that we can start to heal. And that's what we brought to this town. And I'm not joking. When we left, like everything was healed. It sounds nuts,
yeah,
but it was like people were like loving all over each other. They'd hated each other's guts prior. I mean, for real.
interesting.
So, oh, it was beautiful.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm imagining you walking into the Love Island villa and doing the same thing and just
Ah.
getting everyone to fall in love and have a great time. And that's funny. Yeah, I wonder how different the experience would be with having a love coach versus just being a free for all and having, like the producers wanting to create drama versus, because maybe not as entertaining. I don't know.
The funny thing is, with the whole thing of producers creating drama, if they were just quiet and they let people do their thing, they would create their own drama anyway. Like we're just
Yeah,
humans, right? So you really don't have to try that hard. We do it on our own,
that's
on and
true.
off camera.
That's true. We do.
It's, it's a cry for help. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious, kind of following up back to, dating culture right now. I'm curious too, also, do you think reality shows and people getting to watch those influence, dating in real life at all?
Yes, we are all very much sheep. We are very, very, very controlled, more than we have any idea by the media, and which is interesting, fun, and kind of sad and scary all at the same time. But that has so much to do with how well we know ourselves, where our genuine healthy boundaries are at with ourselves and how much we love ourselves. But yes, there are those that want to be, they don't like themselves as they are. And so they want to be like someone else. They want to look like someone else or act like someone else and therefore then abandon more of themselves and feel even more empty and alone. And I think that, to be honest, I just got lost in what I was saying, and so now I forgot what I was saying about your
That's okay.
question. Yeah.
That's okay. Reality shows, do you think that impacts other people, watching them impacts their
Yeah.
dating life?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Again, because I think that the majority are watching and they're sort of emulating what probably isn't so functional, or they're seeing
Mhm.
things that aren't functional and identifying with it and saying, oh, if they're dysfunctional and I do that, but they're on TV, then I guess what I'm doing is fine. I'll just keep doing all this
Mm,
dysfunctional stuff and just stay stuck. Or again, sometimes, as I said earlier, we'll see something, we'll identify with it, we'll realize, oh my Lord, it's a mirror for me. I do that. Oh no, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm so glad I saw that. Now I'm going to change my ways. Again, I think it can be helpful, but it's almost like you need a disclaimer before and after each reality show saying, hey, allow these contestants or these whoever, to be a mirror for you. Who do you most identify with in each character and why? And why, if one drives you nuts, why? Or they get under your skin, why? If you want to judge them and hate them, why? What
mm,
is that saying about you, the viewer? What is that
mm.
triggering in your heart or your self-esteem or your being? But just realizing we all want the same thing. It might look a little different what we're wanting, but at the end of the day, we want the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we talk about it on the show and we've talked about it as a group, but I'm married and my husband and I will watch Love Island together and then we'll
Yeah.
be like, "Ooh, how would we handle that argument?" Or, "Oh, they could have communicated this better or done this." And I think
Love.
it's actually really fun for us to, obviously we're projecting, like you said, have identifying features or qualities in the characters, but then use that as a way to kind of navigate our relationship and how we talk about stuff. So yeah, I think reality TV, personally, I think it's underrated for applying it to your, like dating lives in general and using that as a tool. So I like that you're saying that we should use it as a tool.
I love that you do that. That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
and it's fun and it's time together. I think that's wonderful.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that question, you work with some high profile clients too that are under a lot of public eye and scrutiny and all of that as well. Do you think that there is anything from your client side or that you feel from them that they feel like the public has, a glimpse into their relationship? For example, a Love Island couple, they got together on the show, then they left the villa, had some challenges, and then had to post about them breaking up. And
Mhm.
then 2 weeks later, they got back together and then had to post about them getting back together. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you either have any stories of how, high profile clients navigate communicating things and relationship stuff to the public, or where you would say towing not to, that kind of, I don't know. It's a weird relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. And I think I understand. I think that once again, going back to the very beginning of our conversation and the difficulty of being so heavily in the public eye and having your identity so tied to how you are seen, that it's not only difficult behind the scenes and behind closed doors to have a really authentic, deep, connected relationship, but then again, you have the whole world looking at you and judging you anyway, and then really judging your relationship and whether it's good, perceived as good or bad. And so when it comes to the point of where they have to now admit that they're struggling or they're getting a divorce even, or, separated, it gets back to, I wish I had a better word than handlers, but, they have a whole ring of people around them, a slew of people saying, say this, don't say this, do this, act like this, give it this word, give it this term. And I think that that's a real failed opportunity. And I talk to and work with a lot of their managers and their agents and their attorneys, and because they have so many eyes on them, I think it's a really beautiful opportunity to be really real and authentic and to show the human side of them and to say, hey, this is where I screwed up. This is where we screwed up. This is, we really love each other. We're really in pain right now. It's not as perfect as we've made it look, but we really want to figure it out. And, here's how you could possibly learn from us and heal your own relationships or find real healthy love as we're navigating this. But they unfortunately keep too much of it still kind of in the spotlight, just for us all to kind of poke holes at and to not learn anything from. I think again, it's just a massive missed opportunity. And it also is one that just spirals and keeps my clients stuck.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, from the audience perspective, we're sitting there speculating and making all of these guesses. And, what you're saying is that maybe they can be a little bit not forthcoming with details, but forthcoming with emotions and how they've sort of navigated it for us to learn, which I'm happy to learn. It makes them feel like humans instead of, like people that are just the top of the totem pole.
Yeah.
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 Do you have any examples of, a story where you've worked with a client and, they've had really great success that you could share? Doesn't have to name names or anything, but just, an experience that, someone that has been in the public eye has, found some success through sort of your approach.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who I'd want to talk. Let's see. I mean, there are a lot. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I would just say that, yeah, yes. One client that, well, clients, but they were once married a long time ago, divorced, remained in each other's lives as very dear friends, wonderful co-parents, realized years later that they still had a very, very deep, profound love for one another, even though they had both married others, and a lot of unhealed stuff from their marriage years back that they never had a chance to heal, that they then brought into their new relationships. Again, this is like, you could say this for anyone. And so I indirectly I said, okay, you too, even though you're with other people, we need to do some marriage counseling and coaching and healing with you. We need to heal your marriage, even though you're divorced.
Wow.
And they were like, what? Like, wait, what? And their spouses and partners were like, I don't care, have at it. And so we did, and it was an incredibly deep healing and emotional opportunity many years later for them to literally unravel, heal, and find peace and forgiveness with each other that ended up profoundly changing the relationships they were each in individually, improving those. And then it changed the dynamics of the family and then their kids. I see that, I've put hundreds and hundreds of marriages together and thousands into relationships. But I will tell you that the most exciting thing for me is, if not the ability to help people really love themselves and find themselves and know themselves before meeting someone else, it's taking those relationships and the people that did fall in love genuinely, hit really hard walls, and help them truly fall in love in a true, genuine way and have the best love they'd ever had. And or the people that the families that were going through divorce or after divorce heal the stuff that they just carried into the next relationships. That's the best, because that changes. That's a generational thing, that you're cutting old junk and you're
Mm.
showing kids, whether they're adult kids, whatever, that it no matter what, no matter how much has happened or how much time has passed, it can still heal and be okay. You don't even have to be in that relationship anymore, and it can heal. Does that make sense?
Totally. That's a great example too of just working through so much past in order to move forward. That's, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed even to go far back into the previous relationship and kind of do that kind of work to move
Oh
forward. I've been like, in the past, I don't talk to exes. But that's it. That's wow. What an interesting way to go about that.
yeah.
I want to wrap up because I know we're closing out the hour, and I have a fun last question to ask you. And this is for anyone listening, just one piece of brutal, honest advice you would give to the audience about dating.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Brutal advice. We've heard about lists forever. Have your list. Know your wants. Okay, so create your list. Your list will always start with your ego. I don't care how spiritual you think you are. Everything that you want, physically, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, what do you want in your partner? And then why? Most people stop at the what.
Mm,
Okay, so why? And the why is not just, oh, well, I want this because, oh, next I answered that one. No, no, it's on each one. Dissect the why. Are there several whys? Ask yourself over and over with each element, because of this, because of this, because of this, and let it go deep. And you will not believe how you drop from the ego to the spirit, to the soul, to the depths of, I mean, to the little girl, the little boy. And you're like, oh my, what the heck? This was supposed to be just my list. Until you can't write anymore, until you can't come up with any more whys behind each need and desire.
mm,
And then go back and look at the entire list and say, okay, if I had all of that, do I still really need or want all of that? And then again, why? Because we so abandon ourselves, especially when we're looking for love, that we end up, again, as I said before, being the wrong person and therefore attracting and being in the wrong relationship.
mm,
So that's really, it's getting to the truth of the list, creating the list of all the wants and needs and desires from every part of your being, and then all the whys until you can't come up with any more behind each one, and then getting really raw and real with that and saying, okay, what do I really need? And actually now, what would I want to change? And if I had that, why would that make me happy?
mm,
And then what is why? Why? It's like a 2-year-old. Why? Right? Do that with yourself. Do that before you start swiping or you go on a date or you are on a first date and you're not sure if you want a second date. Do it.
mm,
Otherwise, you're making a really big mistake because you're not really connected and in tune with yourself and what you really do want and what you really do need and why. And
and
just,
why?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kaylin, for this. I really, really appreciated your time and
Oh.
just wanted to share a little bit more about how to find you and your work. You can check out your work at thelovearchitects.com and mylovedesign.com. You can also explore the Love Collection at kai-len.com, kalen.com. And I know, Kaylin, you said that you are working with an amazing bachelor in their golden years and they're looking for a perfect match. Reach out if you have anyone. That's amazing to hear that.
Actually, a
Anything?
bachelorette, I will say. She's a
Oh,
bachelorette. And so,
bachelorette.
yes, and yes. So if any of your listeners or your viewers have a, a grandpa or a dad that is ready for the most amazing, amazing woman on so many levels, yes, send them my way because it would be so fun to put a really great love story together.
All right. I will plug that for you and hopefully we can get someone from our listeners. That would be amazing. But thank you again so much for having us and being here and being open and sharing all of your experience. I really, really appreciate it.